G'day everyone and welcome to this video. I'm not making an avocado video today, I'm making another kind of houseplant video. You see, I have this Philodendron Micans that I've had for quite some time and it needs some attention. It's, pretty healthy, but it is extremely leggy. Just look how long this thing is. My goal today is to give it a makeover. I'm going to start this video today and I'm going to be making it over the next few months so that we can see the process that I'm going to go through to turn this into a more lush, thick foliage plant. Because at the moment it's just one long vine. Not for lack of trying, I have pruned this a couple of times, but it's not responded. So I'm going to be doing that today. Philodendron Micans is a variety of heartleaf philodendron, so they're related to our philodendron heartleaves as well as our philodendron Brazils, and they've got these beautiful, velvety leaves, and it's very, very leggy. So we're gonna hopefully, over the next couple of months, transform this into a much lusher, more beautiful plant. I think we can say that, because at the moment it's a great vine, but it's that's about all we've got going for it. So I am going to be doing some serious chopping and propping. My goal is really to turn this into many small plants that I can plant in one container, that we can train up a moss pole and just have this really dense, lovely Micans plant, or multiple plants in one pot. So I've got some clean scissors here and I'm going to get chopping. So I have got my Avocado jar there full of water. I've got my clean scissors. You can clean them with a rubbing alcohol or a detergent if you let them dry. And I'm going to find some spots to prune this plant. I'm just going to be cutting in the internodal section. So a node is anywhere that has a leaf, a petiole, or a root coming out. At the moment, I've got leaves on most of them, which is nice. And so I'm just going to chop in the internode section, and hopefully some roots will start growing out of the nodes there. I'll also remove the leaves that are going to be growing in the water, so I don't want to have any submerged leaves. So let's get chopping. So I'm going to make the first chop there. Oh, there it is. It's a big haircut, and now I've kind of got this whole length to be working with here. So I'm just actually going to chop these lengths into smaller pieces and hope that we can get some good growth out of it. So I'm just going to chop, and I'm going to take off the leaf that I'm going to be submerging, just by either should be just be able to pull it off. It's a really lovely leaf, which is not going to grow anymore because I've taken it off. So I'm going to put the node that I just pruned that off into the water and continue on with my pruning. Okay, and now I have got them in the Avocado jar there. It's time for me to set them aside and wait for them to grow. So if all goes according to my plan, the footage that you'll see in a few seconds is of this in a couple of weeks' time, once it's done some growing. Let's see what happens. It's been a few months since I propagated this Philodendron Micans, and the Philodendron Mican itself, like the mother plant, has predictably started pushing out some new growth. We're only just entering spring now. It's September when I'm filming this now, Melbourne, Australia. That means that it's the start of spring, and as the season is changing, it's starting to put out some new growth, which is great. And the props themselves have got heaps of roots. They are ready to be put into some potting media now. So I'm pretty excited about this, really. I'm very excited to see what we're going to get up to. I am going to be putting these on a moss pole. I'm not gonna have them trail, I could, but I want to get them growing big and growing up. So I'm gonna be putting them on a moss pole. I made a video about making moss poles. You can find that in the description below. But it's really easy to do, also quite cost effective. This is a self-watering moss pole as well, which is going to encourage the micans to put aerial roots into the moss to anchor it and to help it to continue to grow. Philodendron Micans are epiphytic plants, meaning that they like to grow on other plants as a structure. They don't grow these kind of strong trunks themselves. They are vining plants, but they can use other plants like a bit of a ladder or an anchor to grow up. They're not parasitic. They don't take the plant's nutrition. They don't kill the other plant, but they use the bark and so on to grow up. They can take some water, but we will be able to make that meet their needs very easily. So I have prepared for them this moss pole, and I am going to put them in a reasonably large pot for this one. Because there's so many plants, I don't feel bad about doing this one. Usually I would upscale or upsize a single plant fairly slowly, go to just the next size up, but because we're adding so many and because we want to encourage that growth, because we're going into summer, because we're using a really well draining soil, we're going to be okay. If you want to hear me talk more about how I upsize my avocado trees in particular, there's a link in the description. If you want to see a link to my soil mix, there's also a link in the description. I'm using a very well draining one. It's about half perlite and then a quarter coconut peat and a quarter just cheap potting mix. Then I've got some broad spectrum fertilizer thrown in there as well. Let's get to it. I'm going to place the pole in the center of the pot. I'm going to need to put plenty of potting mix around this to make sure that it stays put, which is what I'm going to do now. I should have been more prepared and bought a tool. I've got my potting mix just off to the side of camera here, and I'm going to use my hands just to kind of scoop it in. So let's do it. I'm going to compact the potting mix fairly well around the pole, just because I want there to be plenty in there so that it doesn't rock around too much. Okay, it's just at the point where it can support itself. I'm not going to lift up the pot to tilt it, but I am going to start adding some plants. I'm going to start with the big one. So I'm going to pop it up now. I didn't mention, we did end up just putting a prop in there just to see how it went, and it's done very, very well. So I'm expecting this might fall apart a little bit into two, and that's okay though. You won't get a super good view from that camera there. Anyway, let's do it. Oh. Okay, I've really disturbed the roots there, so I'm going to be very careful with the two individual plants that I have. Oh, this one is actually, you won't be able to see it from that angle, but it's starting to put out another a runner from the very base of the plant, which is great. I love to see that. So I'm going to very carefully, I would have liked to take some of the soil with it, but it's just kind of fallen apart here, and that's okay. It's not a huge problem. And then there's the prop, which we just kind of threw in there to see what happens, and that's got a nice little root system as well there, which we will pop in as well, just there. And I've got those two in there. It's time to get some of the other ones in there as well. So we've got, oh, look at these beautiful props with great roots. This one's just a tiny one, but it's got, this is really enthusiastic. I'm actually going to come and show you this one to get up to do that. Look at this, it's got one root, but it's got two growth points there. That's fantastic. So I'm going to place this one reasonably close to the bottom, and that's going to be, I'm super excited to see that grow. That's going to be awesome. I think most of these have taken on and done a great job of rooting, which is very exciting for me. And because I've been digging around the moss pole, it's starting to get a little bit loose in there, which we'll be able to fix up in just a moment once I've finished this. But I just need to hold it for now. It's a little bit tricky. It would be easier if I had another set of hands perhaps, but that's okay. We'll make do. Some good sized roots there. We want to get down as low as we can with those. Those are fantastic. I'm getting a little nervous about this moss pole. And it's very top heavy at the moment. There's not a lot holding it in because I've been disturbing the soil. It'll be okay in a minute, but at the moment it's a little little tentative. And oh, this one, oh, very sweet. Okay, let's backfill. Make sure that the pole itself is really secure, and then we'll start attaching these to the pole itself. Okay, so at the moment I've got some trailing plants with a big moss pole. Let's use that moss pole to wind these plants around. I'm gonna just kind of attach them. Some of them are not very long, so they won't need a lot of attaching. I'm going to try my best to keep the section that has the leaf facing away, because the other side will be the back of the vine itself. So I want to get those aerial roots that are starting to pop out going into the moss. So I want the leaves going away from it. I'm going to take my gloves off for this part because it's easier, it's quite fiddly, this bit. And I'm going to use a Velcro tape to attach them to it. So it's not going to go up very high, but this is a long-term process. So let's get attaching them. We'll do the long one first, shall we? It's not getting around very far, and that at the moment is actually perfect. Just this little part here, there's a leaf coming out, which is great, but the section next to it, it doesn't have a node at the end. The node is here. We don't need this section. It's not going to grow anything, so I'm just going to cut that off. All I need to do now is to water it, fill up the pole itself with water. If you watch my video on how to make one of these, you'll know that I can fill up this, and it's going to wick water around the sphagnum moss so that it remains damp, which encourages the plant to put its aerial roots in there to anchor in. And then I need to find a place with some great bright indirect light. So I'm going to water it now, and we will check back in another few months' time to see what this has become. I realise looking at it now, perhaps I've been a bit ambitious. I don't actually think I've been ambitious. We'll get to it. Let's wait. We'll care for it. It's been a few months now since I started the Micans propagations and plants on this moss pole, and as you can see, a few things have changed. It is looking really happy, and the amount of growth we're getting out of this is fantastic. It is really comfortably putting its roots into the moss pole now, which I'm really pleased by. I've removed most of the Velcro that was attaching the vines to the moss pole because it's anchored in now. It doesn't need it, and it's looking really good. Some of the new growth that we're seeing, the leaves are larger than I've had on these plants before, and it's starting to really look a lot more dense than we were getting before. I'm gonna give it a little while longer, and we'll see what else we can do with this plant. It's been a couple of months since our last update, and I am so impressed with how this moss pole is growing. Just look at it. It's been doing really well where it is. It's anchored in entirely. There is no Velcro at all holding the plant on, like everything is attached in, and it's growing really beautifully. It's starting to be the vision that I wanted for it. So it's got lots of these leaves down here. It's looking really dense, and it's even getting towards the top here. This vine here has made it to the top. Now it's a bit hard to see with that angle, but you can see it there. It has just grown really well, and I'm actually not keen for it to go too much beyond the top. So I'm going to prune it. Why am I pruning it? Well, again, I don't need it to grow up the top. Eventually it's going to start trailing, which I don't really want. I don't want this kind of fountain looking thing. I want this really dense pole of foliage. I don't want a fountain. So I want to get rid of it there. And also, because I'll take away the primary meristem, so the end part that does the actual growing, the plant will try and produce more primary meristem. So it's going to activate along the vine some of the nodes and will become more vines, which will in turn grow into the pole and will become much more dense. So that's the goal anyway. So to do this, I'm going to need some pruners. You can use scissors for this. I like to use secateurs. Here are mine. and I always use clean secateurs. So whenever I finish using these, I'll rub them down with rubbing alcohol because I don't want any bacteria sitting on there that could cause problems, could cause infection and so on. And if there is ever a problem with a plant, I don't want to cause cross-contamination or anything like that. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to come just above the top leaf, so just above the top node, and I'll prune it off. Probably zoom in for this bit, and I'll prune it off. Now, we won't see the effects of our pruning for a little while, but we are certainly going to see them at some point in the future. Now, what do I do with this? Well, I could just throw it out. I could propagate it in water, or because there's nothing really to lose, I could just pop it in at the base here and see what happens. So I'm gonna take off kind of the bottom bit of the node, which we don't need because nothing will grow there. I'm also gonna take off the bottom leaf because I'm going to just shove it into the soil and see if it does anything. I'll lean it up against the pole so that these roots here will start growing into it, and we'll just see what happens. Just gonna make a little hole there using a spoon, throw it in there. It's touching the moss, so we'll see how it goes. But check out the size of the leaf that it produced. Like, that's gorgeous. If we're able to get some more of those, I'm gonna be pretty happy. Okay, it's been about 6 weeks since I pruned the top of this Micans plant off, and somewhat predictably, it started growing a new growth point right where I pruned it. So it's activated this node and is growing again. Great, but not where I wanted. I really wanted to activate another one of its nodes down the vine a bit more to thicken it up. So what I'm gonna do is, once again, do some pruning. I'm gonna prune the top growth off, and then we'll continue to wait. I've nearly actually got some more like vines getting to the top as well, which is lovely. This is growing really, really well. I'm very happy, but I want it to thicken up and not get too much taller, so I'm gonna take the top growth off. Okay, so in we go, and just gonna take the top bit off. Now, it's a bit sad to do that, but it is gonna help us out long term. So this one, I can't propagate anything. This has no nodes yet. Actually, there might, no, I'm just gonna toss this one. And we'll check back in soon to see what's happening. I am so excited to show you where we have ended up with this Philodendron Micans. It's just behind me, and here it is. I don't know if the camera's quite getting the color because it's quite got these beautiful dark leaves, but look at this thing. It has gone from this super sparse, super viney, super leggy plant to this extraordinarily dense, well-rooted moss pole. The foliage is looking fantastic. The leaves are getting larger and larger. It's got a lot of growth, and I am just in awe of how this plant is doing. It has gone from the one original plant that we started with, taking some propagations and putting it on this pole has been just fantastic for this plant. It rooted really well, and it is just doing extraordinarily. It's going to continue to thicken up. As you can see, there's a lot of new growth in multiple places on it. I am continuing to prune off the top parts because multiple vines keep getting to the top and then keep trying to find somewhere to go, which is great. And as I continue to prune, it's going to continue to put out new growth points like it already has started to do. I'm really hoping that it starts to put more down the bottom, but if it doesn't, I will just take some more propagations and plant them in the bottom because it's just doing fantastically. This transformation didn't happen overnight. It took a year, but it only took a year. I had an idea in mind. I knew what I had to do with my plant, and the plant has done a fantastic job of filling that vision. From a barely trailing plant to this gorgeous, densely foliated moss pole, I am super pleased with how this went. It was quite a bit of work initially, you know, chopping the plant up, letting it root, growing it in some soil, putting it onto this pole, and then waiting for it to do its thing. But I absolutely think it has been worth it because just look at this incredible moss pole. This Philodendron Micans is doing brilliantly, and I can't wait to see even in another year's time, what this thing is going to look like. It's going to continue to grow more densely. I'm hoping it keeps putting out larger leaves, and I'm just very pleased. If you enjoyed this kind of video where I track one particular plant over the course of a year as I kind of give it a makeover, as I transform it, please let me know in the comments below. And just generally, I'm curious to know what you thought. This wasn't an avocado video, but my interests go a little beyond avocados. I love all kinds of plants, and it's just lovely to be able to see a plant do something like this in not too long a time. If you enjoyed this video and you have already given it a like, already left a comment, please feel free to subscribe to Scott Grows an Avocado Tree. I mean, even if you haven't left a comment or given it a like, I make videos mostly about avocado trees and growing avocados, but I also delve into other houseplant related things because I like them and it's a lot of fun. And I end up with plants that look a bit like this, which is super rewarding as someone who keeps plants. I'm also on Instagram at Scott Grows an Avocado Tree. And if you would like to see more things from me, I'm available on my second channel, That's Pretty Cool, where I make videos on all kinds of topics, much more broad than just plants and avocado trees. But they're topics that inspire in me a sense of curiosity and wonder, and I hope to share that feeling and the things that I find with you over there. Thank you once again for watching. This was an exciting project, and it's been so lovely to be able to share it with you. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Scott grows an avocado tree. Scott grows an avocado tree. Scott grows an avocado tree. Scott grows an avocado tree.